Hi all. From an evolution of style perspective, it's come to my attention of the powerful role that Nikolai Krylenko must have played in the formation of USSR chess. Of course we can say that the world champions had a huge impact on chess style because players would look up to their games. Their games would be published in magazines and the media, and be used as models for how to play certain openings or middle game or end game. But which country had the most world champions? It was the Russians. How did the Russians start? They didn't really start with Anakin. Anakin actually emigrated to France, and for a while he wasn't going to be considered one of the founders of the Soviet chess school, but later all was forgiven. I think him, Chigorin and Mikhail Botvinnik, the three leading figures founding the Soviet chess school. But why was there this rise in the old USSR for the development of chess? How did it get state funded and supported? Well, this is where this guy Nikolai Krylenko is so critical. Various sources cite his catalytical role in making sure chess wasn't just a game. He's quoted as once saying, "We must finish once and for all with this neutrality of chess. We must condemn once and for all the formula chess for the sake of chess, like the formula art for art's sake. We must organise shock brigades of chess players and begin immediate realisation of a 5-year plan for chess." Okay, now part of the 5-year plan, as well as getting lots of world champions and activity, was also, I think, to influence FIDE. Now this is looking ahead. This video looks ahead because actually, Mikhail Botvinnik was actually scheduled to play at one time by Alexander Aniakin. But first, we need to look at a few of his wins against the first challenger Bolemu, and then later how he lost to Max Euwe and regained his title against Max Euwe, who Max Euwe became the FIDE president later. But how did the Russians get so many world champions? Why did they elevate the game to such cultural importance as a kind of measure of the success of communism ideals? Now, I'm not really a political ideologist specialist. Now, this is from Wiki. The Bolsheviks basically derived. They were a faction of the Marxist Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, and that splits apart from the Menshevik faction at the Second Party Congress in 1903. The Bolsheviks were the majority faction in a crucial vote, hence their name. They ultimately became the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. They came to power in Russia during the October Revolution phase of the Russian Revolution of 1917 and founded the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, which would later in 1922 become the chief constituent of the Soviet Union. Okay, so the Bolsheviks, founded by Vladimir Lenin, were by 1905 a mass organisation consisting primarily of workers under a democratic internal hierarchy governed by the principle of democratic centralism, who considered themselves the leaders of the revolutionary working class of Russia. Okay, and you might think, well, how is this relevant, this political ideology? Why did it match that of chess? Well, chess doesn't require much expense to play. Everyone can play chess. If you're poor or rich, noble or just, peasant, anyone can play chess. And so he elevated its kind of status, I believe, as not just the game, but as a symbol of of this system, really working. And he was himself a very enthusiastic chess player, and there are 2 games actually at chess.com which are cited in other places. And here is one game played in 1925. So this was against a player called Lykum. So it kicked off with e4. So Krylenko playing white. And his opponent played e5, and we get actually this very interesting, after bishop c4, not a stodge system, but Krylenko actually plays dynamically. He plays a very aggressive gambit, b4. Okay, and gets a very strong centre very quickly. So bishop a5. And after castles, d6, white plays d4. So white's got that fast central control. Some pressure now building up after bishop d7 on f7. So the queen supports f7. D takes e5, opening up the position a bit. Bishop b6, black didn't recapture back. Maybe he's afraid already of this diagonal and wants to be able to play knight a5 to actually fork these two guys. So white took on d6, and now a very nice retreat, which I think I'm going to show you an Alekine game with a very similar queen retreat, and it takes quite a talented attacking player to spot this kind of retreat. Queen d1, because it's exerting pressure on d6 as well as prophylactically against the threatened fork. So d6 is now a target. The queen's also freer to go to this side of the board if needed. But black actually castled queen side here. Now knight a3, so it looks as though knight b5 is going to be a threat. Maybe bishop f4. So targeting on d6 is now apparent. Bishop g4. Okay, queen d3. Well, unpinning, because there was actually knight e5 on the cards, which now can be answered with knight takes e5. And if here bishop takes, queen takes, knight e5, then there's a check which can be thrown in on h3 if needed. So knight f6, bishop d5, supporting e4, and he doesn't mind, knight takes, e takes perhaps. So rook he8, and now queen c4. So look at the pressure now being exerted on the black king side. I'm not really sure how strong Lykum is, but white didn't play that badly in my opinion. Now he's putting more pressure on c6, knight d4. So knight takes c6, and now rook b1 with horrendous threats like queen a6. It doesn't mind the bishop being in pre. This queen a6 and rook infiltration will prove decisive pretty soon. Bishop f4 threatens actually queen takes c5, and also sacking the knight, of course. But now it's a really crushing attack after queen a6. So threatening rook b7, winning the queen. So that's parried. Rook b7 is parried, but check, winning the rook now, and still winning the queen now with rook b7. And here black resigned. Okay, so this is kind of looking ahead in the series quite a bit at the evolution of chess style. And I'm just trying to claim, I think, that really, what is it which drives chess style? We can't just say the leading players of the time. How were they put in place? It seems, I think, the biggest driver of chess activity, well, we've seen from 1972, of course the media is a huge driver of chess activity. But, why was the media so interested, in fact, in the 1972 match? Fischer was the only, world champion to sort of interrupt, the reign of the USSR world champions. How did this whole interest in chess arise? I think it's Krylenko. A lot of sources are saying Krylenko. And believe it or not, despite his huge importance, if this is true, this guy had such a profound catalytic influence on the evolution of chess style to basically create a whole army, like 250,000 players in the space of 5 years, I think one book's quoted, as well as numerous world champions after that, starting from Botvinnik, so like Tal, Smyslov, Petrosian, Spassky, then interrupted by Fischer. Then we have Karpov, then Kasparov, all these Russian world champions, starting from many of them from the Botvinnik school of chess, but Botvinnik himself being one of the key people that Krylenko could look at as an example of the system working, the funding working. He was the best bet. He was the best of the crop coming up to promote, to give permission to travel to other tournaments, you know, like Hastings, him and Kotov arriving at Hastings, you know, even his wife was allowed to come, which was unheard of. So this guy was a very powerful influence in the formation of the later, you know, wave of USSR grandmasters, you know, before the split up. But the old USSR, Soviet Union, this was the guy, this was the man. In the evolution of chess style, I think if there's one person, it's not a world champion, it's this guy. He created, in effect, you know, one country having chess being used to support or demonstrate the success of a political ideology. So let's have a look at this game anyway. So he was a great chess enthusiast himself as well. So he played quite a dynamic game here, attacking game, with b4. So getting that quick centre and pressure on f7. And with this d takes e5, because I'm not sure Queen e7 was that great. You know, there's problems for black already along this diagonal. So black playing bishop b6, but now there's one issue in the position which is really targeted, and as well as knight a5 being met, this queen d1 creates this great flexibility, attacking flexibility for the queen, not just on the king side, but as shown in this game on the d file as well. So it's very versatile attacking weapon. But d6 is like the primary target. And now look, this queen d3 to c4, put all the pressure put on black's king side. Black's king side is being torn apart here with tempo. Now this bishop f4 connecting the rooks, threatening queen takes c5, and there's still infiltrations available with queen a6 and rook b7. So queen a6, and now coming in to win lots of material. So yeah, I just thought I should mention this because this is the Evolution of Chess Style series, and I wanted, you know, to make a few points because actually, you know, a lot of the world champions after 1920, you know, they ended up playing in the same tournament in Nottingham 1936. It's not as though they had a massive impact on each other's style. We didn't have databases back then anyway, so I wouldn't have thought all of, you know, Alekhine's games were readily available to future world champions, but of course that they were studied, even though, you know, he kind of emigrated to France and had some you know, bad press because of his you know, Nazi connections, alleged Nazi connections. There's a lot of stuff on Wiki which for some time made, you know, Alexander Yalekhin unpopular. So the real star of the USSR show was chosen, you know, in the form of Mikhail Botvinnik, who Alekhine was scheduled to play, but as we'll find out later, and I'll reiterate later perhaps, that there's actually some controversy around Alexander's death. I just wanted to make the point that Krylenko was the major catalyst, I think, in the development of chess style, because we have so many Russian chess world champions. Why was chess elevated to such importance? Well, I just think, as I say, Krylenko saw it as a vehicle for demonstrating the success of political ideology. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.